Hey guys, so the Escalation of Freedom update is now live with a ton of new features and enemies as advertised in the trailer, but to go along with it is a patch that contains new balancing changes and a ton of vital fixes. In this video I will go over all of the patch notes, and then afterwards me and Swanee will both give our analysis of the patch and what it will mean for the game moving forward. But before we dive in, Swanee is going to take over and tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Exter.
Exter produces high-quality wallets and other accessories that are made for convenience and excel at minimalism. And now they've introduced new finder cards that you can use to keep track of your wallet if it were ever to get lost. Think of it as kind of like a homing device for your valuables. All you have to do is apply the tracking card, connect the MyFind app to your phone, and you can find your items anywhere. Exter is also currently in their summer sale where everything is 25% off, but if you use my code SwaneePlays, you will get up to 30% off all sale items instead. So be sure to take advantage of this big sale, and thank you to Exter for sponsoring today's video.
Okay, so this is patch 1.001.002, Escalation of Freedom. The first thing it talks about is major updates. It says difficulty level 10 Super Helldive, a new extreme difficulty level designed for the most experienced and skilled Helldivers, featuring formidable new enemies and intense challenges. Then it says new mission objectives. 2 new secondary objectives will soon be active on a planet near you. These faction-specific optional objectives will have you assaulting automaton human processing plants to destroy their evil bioprocessor, and venturing deep into terminated territory to extract with a living larva sample that the bugs will do anything to get back. Bigger enemy outposts, assault terminated strongholds, and automaton fortresses in the new difficulty Super Helldive. The challenge will be great, but the rewards even greater. Search the conquered outposts thoroughly for the confidential data, and make sure to extract with it. May Liberty guide your path. New bugs and bots. New and enhanced threats to freedom emerge. Guess who's back to bug you again? The Impaler returns, burrowing its head and popping tentacles from the ground to catch you off guard. Watch out for its lethal limbs, but don't miss its weak spot when it digs in. It seems like self-preservation still isn't its strong suit. The Impaler, however, is not all. Prepare for the rest of the formidable foes. The rocket tank rolls in with heavy armor and devastating firepower. The reinforced Scout Strider now has its previously vulnerable spot fortified and boasts 2 rockets on each side for greater firepower. The Spore Charger fearlessly invades through the thick acidic fog, accompanied by an alpha commander. Watch out for its friends. New Swamp Planet. Prepare to dive into an eerie and foggy version of the Swamp Planet. Keep your wits about you and do not let fear take hold. And last on the major updates is the new environmental hazards, the Acid Storms. It temporarily lowers armor for enemies and the player. Make use of this, but stay on high alert. Helldivers. Next up is the balancing. Now this one, not nearly as many balance updates to the weapons as there was in the previous patch from June, but there's still some very important ones to go over. Starting with the SG-8S Slugger. Simply gets increased stagger force, increased spread, and increased drag. So this is definitely the most significant buff that you're going to see from this update, and it's going for the Slugger. Probably the most significant nerf that you're going to see is the SG-225 IE Breaker Incendiary. It decreased the number of magazines from 6 to 4, and increase the recoil from 28 to 41. There was also a bit of a nerf to the GP31 grenade pistol. It decreased the ammo capacity from 8 to 6 and increased the number of rounds replenished from an ammo box from 2 to 4, so a little give and take on that. The C9 exploding crossbow is now one-handed. The AX-AR-23 guard dog increases its number of magazines from 6 to 8, and then there's been some changes to 2 of the barrages. The orbital walking barrage now has an increased number of salvos from 3 to 5 and a decreased movement speed by 40%. The orbital 120mm HE barrage has a decreased cooldown from 240 seconds to 180 seconds and a reduced time between salvos. There's been some interesting changes to gameplay. I'm actually going to go through all these. I don't always, but these ones are actually probably worth looking into a little bit deeper. The operation modifier Atmospheric Interference has been removed, which could be a big deal. Additionally, for the automatons, we added the modifier Poor Intel, which makes objectives on the map to get a search radius, just like most Eliminate objectives already has. Corrosive acid planets no longer have the intense heat environmental modifier. The gunship patrols are now less frequent and the amount of ships are reduced. And also the gunship engines are less durable now, so a bit of a nerf to the gunships in more than one way. An improved armory weapon preview controls, updated orders UI. You'll probably notice that pretty quickly that you see the major order and the personal order have a bit of a different look to them. The energy shields such as the shield generator pack and shield generator relay now block snowstorms as well as sandstorms. So that could be a big upgrade and another reason to use the shield generator moving forward. And this is probably the most important piece, is a new grief protection system has been added that allows kicked players to continue in their own mission. This allows players to complete the mission and get full rewards despite being kicked. This is potentially going to solve a problem that has been a problem since the game came out, of grief issues where people would just get kicked for no apparent reason and lose out on all rewards from the mission. So that should not be possible anymore, which is obviously a really good fix to see. Next up, it shows a bunch of crash fixes, so I'm just going to put these up on the screen for you to look at. You can pause the video if you want to look at them more detailed, but just a bunch of different crashes that could potentially happen. There was also some weapon and stratagem fixes. I'm going to keep this on as well, but I am actually going to read through a couple of these first. The ones I think are the most interesting are for the Arc 12 Blitzer. For one, it says now you can now hold the fire button to shoot continuously, which changes that gun fairly significantly. There's a bunch of changes to the ballistic shield backpack, including it no longer blocks the enemy's line of sight, no longer collides with the combat walker. It fixed a bug where you would pick up the SSD drive and would cause ballistic shields to be dropped, and also the ballistic shield should no longer collide with the player as long as it's being wielded. And the AR-23 guard dog can now be refilled from ammo boxes found on the map, so the guard dog overall gets a bit of a buff in more ways than one. Couple of miscellaneous weapon fixes. I'm going to throw that up on the board for you guys to look at. Now this one's pretty big, and this I'm not going to read through each and every one of them, but there has been a lot of talk about social menu fixes and how important it is to try to fix that, and here is all the social menu fixes that they have done in this current update. So they definitely have been paying attention to that and have gotten some stuff accomplished in that regard. And then there is just a ridiculous amount of miscellaneous fixes. It's not even enough for one graphic. I'll be showing this multiple graphics over and over, so I'm not going to read through all of these either, because there's just an incredibly high amount of miscellaneous fixes. Didn't even know most of this stuff was messed up, but it's nice to see that this is getting fixed. So if you wanted to read through all of them, you can obviously pause the video at any time during this little spiel I'm having, and you can read through exactly what they all say. But there's a ton of miscellaneous fixes, so they have been very, very busy. And with any patch, there is always known issues, and as always, I'll leave that as well for you guys to read through. Just a bunch of random known issues, a little bit less than the last time, so that's always good to see. Alright, so that's the entirety of the patch notes summarized. Now we're going to discuss this and say what our first impressions are. So Swanee, first impressions of the patch overall, what do you think of it from what you can tell?
Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm not a big fan of this update so far. While you were recording this first part and doing the patch notes, I was doing a little bit of testing, and I'm working on a testing video because I want to do all the balance changes and stuff. But they nerfed a couple things, and I'm not a big fan of that because they said a couple of updates ago that they were done nerfing things, and here we are, and they're nerfing things. And they keep adding more enemies and stronger enemies and new, harder game modes, but then they nerf our weapons. So then it's just a big clusterfuck. We're getting surrounded by so many enemies, and we're getting ragdolled. Like me and you tried that new Helldive difficulty against the bots on level 10, and there were so many cannons. Like there's a new cannon unit now that just spams you, and I'm just getting ragdolled around constantly against the bugs. There's just so many bugs thrown your way, and it's just, I don't know. I'm not having fun so far with this update.
My biggest issue is not something that I brought up specifically, but it's kind of hidden in the miscellaneous fixes, which also kind of annoys me because it's probably one of the biggest things in this update, that it's hidden in that giant list of miscellaneous fixes. It says that adjusted flame effects are to work more realistically. It doesn't go through various bodies or objects. Where it bounces off would be the expected behavior, like on armors and static objects. That is extremely significant, and not only is that significant for what's currently in the game, in 2 days we have a new war bond that is all flame stuff, and I'm assuming it's obviously going to apply to that too, which some people have already brought up in the Reddit for Helldivers that's going to make that war bond obsolete. And I could see how, because currently with the flamethrowers and with the flame grenades, they're very ineffective. They've obviously been nerfed. They're obviously not as powerful as they were. And if that's going to apply to everything, which I would assume it will, yeah, that's going to be a pretty lame war bond, which takes us way back to a problem they had back in April with the war bond being kind of obsolete because of nerfs. They're kind of doing the same thing again in a different way. That's my biggest issue, is that, because this really takes away some of the excitement over this war bond that's coming in a couple days.
Yeah, I tried the flamethrower on Helldivers difficulty against some chargers and just big groups of bugs, and the flamethrower just feels awful. Before it felt very powerful. You could kill a charger in just a couple seconds. It could melt through like bile spewers and stuff like that. And now it can still kill the small stuff pretty easily, but anything like a charger, it's like, why even bring the flamethrower now? Like, there's so many chargers on those higher difficulties that you pretty much have to bring a rocket launcher to deal with the chargers now. Like, that was one of the cool things about the flamethrower, is that you had an alternative way to deal with the chargers. And now the flamethrower is completely useless against chargers. And it was already useless against Bile Titans. So now we have even less of a reason to bring the flamethrower. And they took one of my favorite stratagems and they nerfed it, and it's just disappointing. Like, we had this whole month to look forward to this big update, and I figured, they would take this time to buff some of those other weapons that aren't up to par compared to, some of the best weapons. And they didn't do that. They didn't buff very many things, and they nerfed a couple of weapons after they said they weren't going to nerf anymore. So it's just like, what the hell? I don't know. It's like they're making the game harder for no reason.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the plan was with that, especially, I mean, that whole situation with the flames, I think, is ridiculous. I do think, from some of the fun stuff, to be on a positive note, I think that the Impaler is really cool. It's very difficult to deal with, but it looks really, really cool. It adds a whole nother element to the battlefield, adds a lot of chaos, and I think it adds a lot to it as far as fun and enjoyment is concerned. So I like that. I don't like the new charger, because the new charger is just, it's too much with the acidic cloud that goes around the charger. Because if the charger's anywhere near you, you can't see anything. And by anywhere near you, I mean anywhere near you. Not like on top of you. Like, if he's fighting your teammate, you're going to know, because you're going to be in a cloud of acid. I think that's a little, I think that could, I mean, it's not going to get a nerf right away, but that could use a nerf. It's too far of an acid cloud that the charger brings around. And in general, the chargers are just insane now, because as we said with that flame effect, those chargers are almost impossible to kill. You have to have something specifically just for them, and you probably won't be able to kill Bile Titans. We're running out of stratagem slots for like playing around. You have to have certain things on these maps now, and that's kind of disappointing. But yeah, from the new units, as far as the Terminators are concerned, they're a little hit or miss, but I really like the Impaler. I think that adds a whole nother element to the game.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on both of those. Like, the Impaler's cool. It's just chaotic, and it's hard to deal with the Impaler when there's so many smaller bugs. But that Spore Charger, I'm not a big fan of the Spore Charger, because the radius is as big as like one of those giant spore like trees, and you can't see anything. But this Spore Charger is always on the move, so it's kind of hard to get an idea of where the hell it's at to even kill the thing, because you can't see. So you're constantly just in the clouds, like everything's blinding you. You're getting attacked from all sides. You're trying to find where this charger's at, and now you can't kill the chargers as easily, like if you had the flamethrower. So it's like, how on earth are you supposed to use a stratagem like your airstrikes in this giant cloud on a moving charger? I'm not a big fan of that. I honestly, I kind of hate it.
It's also not that inventive. Like, the Spore Charger is just a charger with spores, which already was in the game, both of those things. So it's not like a very different experience. It's just a more annoying experience. So I think they kind of missed the mark with that unit. But while the Impaler is a totally different experience, totally different unit to fight, that definitely makes that a lot more of a good thing. So one really good thing, one, I don't know if I'd say really bad, but overall bad. And as far as the Brood Commander things, I don't see much of a difference. They look cool, but otherwise I
can't tell much of a difference at all with the Brood Commanders. I know that they can summon like little mini commanders, which just adds more bugs to the fight. Like, basically, there's just way more bugs than normal, and it's just crazy difficult now.
I do like them trying to add new things as far as all these things that were like part of the trailer and stuff, like the new enemies, the new enemy outposts, the new mission objectives. I like them adding that more content. It's just, I think this misses the mark on the balancing stuff. Like, this was not the kind of balancing we really needed. Like, it's nice the Slugger is useful now, but to nerf stuff that really wasn't overpowered, I don't understand why he did that. And the flame stuff, I think, is just ridiculous. So I'm a little torn on this one. I think they really missed the mark with the flames and the balancing. It's just cool to have a lot of new things to try, and I like that element of it. But yeah, I don't know what they were doing with the balancing this time around.
Yeah, I also find it interesting that they nerfed the Breaker Incendiary Shotgun right before we're about to get a new Incendiary Shotgun and a new War Bond. It's like, how do we get people to try out the new Fire Shotgun? Well, let's nerf the old one. It just leaves a sour taste in my mouth. And it just feels like they keep making the game harder for no reason. They keep adding more enemies, stronger enemies, and then at the same time, they keep nerfing our weapons. So it feels like I'm spending more time running away from the enemies and waiting for my stratagems to be on cooldown than I am actually fighting. And it kind of sucks the fun out of it for me. So I don't know. I was really looking forward to this update. We took a whole month off because the developers took a month off, and the game was getting pretty stale for us because we played it so much. And to come back to this kind of update, and it feels like it's a bit of a letdown.
Yeah, and of course with the Breaker Incendiary, all that flame effects apply to that too. So It really gets a nerf. Like, it's a pretty significant nerf to that.
Yeah, I just don't get why they would have a new fire war bond. Everybody wanted more fire stuff, and then they nerf the fire before they give us fire stuff. It's like, what the hell? Why?
Yeah. And it was like I mentioned, there's a ton of fixes in this. So I assume that's all good. I didn't know the game was this broken that needed that many fixes, to be honest. But and one of the fixes that we brought up didn't really seem like a fix that was necessary. So it's an odd update, I think, for the most part. But it's definitely a very different game now, and there's still a lot more to be seen. But based on what we know so far, it's not my favorite update. But it's not the worst one either, I guess, is how I would summarize it.
All right, well, that's going to do it for everything in today's video. Let us know what you guys think of this update down in the comment section down below. I'm currently working on a ton of videos around this update. I'm working on a video currently about all the new balancing changes, so keep an eye out for that. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications. That way you don't miss out on any future Helldivers 2 videos. And that is going to do it for us, and we will talk to you all next time.